All right, we're back at OraDev. Heather Van Kira here interviewing some of our famous speakers attending OraDev. And it's lunchtime here, so we have some people hanging out in the crowd. So welcome my next guests. We have Paul and Sander, who are famous speakers, traveling the conference circuit this year and the last couple of weeks. Thanks for joining me. Why don't you maybe just introduce yourselves for those who don't know you?
Sure.
We'll start with some questions.
So I'm Sander Mak. I'm from the Netherlands, and I work for Luminous Technologies as a software architect, actually co-worker of Paul at Luminous Technologies. And we're pretty deep into Java 9 and modularity and all topics surrounding that, and I'm doing lots of conference talks on that recently. So that's my introduction.
Yes, as Sander said, my name is Paul. I'm also from the Netherlands. And Java 9 is definitely the main topic for this year and probably the next year to come as well.
Right. So I've seen you speak at a few different conferences. We were both at a conference earlier this week, and now we're at OraDev. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about kind of how it came to be that you developed this talk and what your motivation was for developing the talk.
Sure. So in past years, Sander and I have been speaking at a lot of conferences already, mostly a lot of Java conferences. And our main topic was most of the time about modularity. So we did a lot of OCI in the past, which is modularity as well. So when when developments around Java 9 modularity came to life, it made sense for us to look into it. So we decided to start speaking about it, and not just speak about it, but also write about it. So the beginning of this year, we started writing for O'Reilly a book called Java 9 Modularity, which is about a module system that will be coming in Java 9.
Right.
So I think it's important to add that for us modularity isn't just about technology and changes in the language of Java, for example. It's also something that enables Luminous as a business to be more agile, to have products that are evolvable, flexible, etc. So it has both sides, a business side and a technological side, and that's really what helps us in also driving this conference speaking, writing about it, because we truly believe it's important business enabler for Luminous and other companies as well to have a modular software development stack. Whether that's using OSGI or using the new Java 9 modules, that doesn't really matter. It's the principles that count. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in my role, I often have people approaching me. So community members, I work with the Java community, lead the Java community process. Oftentimes developers will ask me, how they can become more involved, how can they become a conference speaker, how can they kind of raise their visibility in the community. So I think it's really interesting what you've done. I've seen you grow over the last few years where you're speaking at more conferences, and as we talked about, your employers supporting you in doing this. So you have any tips that you share with somebody who's obviously in a different situation, doesn't work at your company, but maybe how you approached it?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the greatest things of the Java world is that there are so many Java user groups in the world. All around the world there are just small groups of people who are really interested in getting together and learning together, and those have very many opportunities to actually start speaking and start developing your way of presenting yourself and getting your ideas out there and hacking together and doing things together. For example, in the Netherlands we have the Dutch Java user group, which has a fairly big conference every year in the Netherlands, and we see lots of talent developing there as well. Just local talent, local people who start speaking and just have a platform to grow and to start, and that's how we started as well. Just get out there, be involved in the community, in your Java user groups, and grow from there. That's at least what worked for us. So yeah.
Right.
Maybe important to add to that is that don't be afraid to speak about something, even if you're not like the all-knowing expert, because we are not the all-knowing experts either. Even if you just talk about using some kind of technology as a user and share your experience about it, about that, that's very valuable for a lot of other people who didn't look into that technology yet. So don't be afraid to speak about something that you're just using and want to share experiences with. It's a really good way to actually get into speaking.
Right, I think those are two really good tips. So work with your local community, your user group. That can be a great, training opportunity. Start with a small group of people that you're comfortable with, and then, don't be afraid and think that you have to be an expert in the technology before you start speaking about it. And maybe start at a smaller venue, and gradually expand that into larger venues. I think I find that similar with JSR expert groups, right? Oftentimes developers will tell me they've been a member for a long time, they've been using this particular technology for a long time, but they don't think they're qualified to nominate themselves to be on an expert group. So sometimes it's challenging to bring more people in and get the different perspectives in the expert groups, because no one feels like they're enough of an expert or the expert.
Yeah, I mean, the word expert is sort of intimidating in that sense, and
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful to underline what Paul says. We're all learning here together, and we're all growing together, even when creating specs. I mean, it's not just something to leave up to the all-knowing experts. If there are people who are all-knowing, I don't know, but especially if you use the technology, you have valuable insights and valuable feedback to feed in such a process. So really get active and make your voice heard. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I think we introduced a new term in the JCP for JSRs this year. We added a level of participation, which is an associate member can be a contributor on a JSR. So that takes away the expert label, right? So
Might be a good start.
Yeah. So we have that to go with. So what are some of the most common things that people get out of your session? The session that you're doing here at AuraDev, you're doing the JDK9 modularity talk. So what's some of the best feedback that you get? Some of the things that people learn that they wouldn't have otherwise known about what's coming with Java 9.
Right. So the biggest feature that we focus on in our talk is the Jigsaw, the module system that has been a long time in the making in Java actually. And what we see there is that we have two parts to our talk. First, we talk about what modularity actually is and why it's important for software development to be modular, and I already talked a little bit about that. We think it's important to have flexible applications, to have evolvable applications, and modularity is a tool to do that. And then we dive into the actual features of the module system that are coming in Java 9. And what you see there is that you get new ways to actually encapsulate and hide code inside modules. So there are no accidental dependencies anymore in your code base between different parts that shouldn't be there. And the other big theme of the Java 9 module system is that you are explicit about the dependencies between modules. And this explicit dependency information is used both at compile time and at runtime, and it really helps you to structure your application and get a more reliable system. And I think those are two things that people are really looking forward to, because if you look at Java nowadays, when you build large systems, you have a very large class path and all kinds of issues with that, and people are really keen to get rid of that and to see an improved situation there.
Yeah.
And Java 9 is probably the biggest Java release that we will ever get. I mean, this is the first Java release that actually breaks stuff, potentially. Which is new and which is really important. So it's more important than with previous releases in Java to actually start looking at it very early, start testing your own applications, start looking at potential issues. And after you did that, share feedback, because the mailing list is very important. If you look at the prototypes that have been out there, they've been directly influenced by what people have been saying on the mailing list. So let your voice be heard there as well. That's super important.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key. So I think we're working with the user groups, encouraging them to go to the adoption group. So there's actually OpenJDK has created an adoption group as part of the project, and there you can find links to a wiki where you can download the latest early access build of the RI. So it's updated like every couple of weeks. Has the modularity already integrated for several months now. And then test your applications, and then there's a link down on the bottom which is the alias for the adoption group. So provide your feedback there, and then different people who are on the alias can pick it up and feed into issues or if there's things there that maybe could be picked up and fed into the OpenJDK project itself. So we really made an effort to kind of make it easier for more developers to actually provide their feedback and have a tool available, some guidance on how to do it. So making the builds available often, and then a little bit of guidance in terms of what's happened with that build, and then what you should do once you actually try out your applications and how you give that feedback. So I think it's going to be really important to the success of the release. So I think it's key what you're doing as well. So getting the word out there in the community. So it's great to see you here at AuraDev. We'll just close with maybe share with me, your impressions of AuraDev as a first timer, as a returning speaker. What are your favorite things about AuraDev?
So I come to a lot of conferences, and most of those conferences are like real Java conferences. The Java technical related content, etc. But EuroDev is a little bit different because first of all, it's a mixed conference. So we have lots of different disciplines here, different technologies, but also things not directly related to technology, more in how do you actually run projects, how do you do UX. And that makes a very interesting mix of topics and also a very interesting mix of people. People that you might not otherwise be, involved with so much at typical Java conferences. That's what I really like about it. The other thing that I really like is that I have a whole bunch of keynotes, and all those keynotes are about almost maybe social topics related to technology, but not directly about technology. And those are really interesting and definitely worth watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's my first time at EuroDev here, and so far I'm really enjoying it.
Right.
I mean, it's a great location, the vibe of the conference is great. I really love the first keynote, really eye-opening, at least for me, in some aspects. And what I also really liked is that there's sort of an overarching theme to the whole conference. Building up from, what are some of the problems when you look at where does the current computing power lie, right? This was the topic of the first keynote. Building up to all the way, what can we do and how can we really, as developers, act on this? So that's something you don't see very often on a conference, such a theme throughout the conference. And that's nice. And of course, Paul and I are very happy to be presenting our work here as well. And it's very great to have this opportunity. So,
right. Yeah. Well, it's my first time here, and I guess I would echo what you've said. So I'm still, experiencing the conference. I really like the venue. I really like the fact that I maybe don't know all the people here, so it's a little bit of a different experience for me in that way. And then I did enjoy the morning keynote as well, kind of more social, technical topic.
Right,
So
yeah.
I enjoyed that. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference. Thanks for taking the time to share with us a little bit about what you're doing here.
welcome.
And enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.